Hello and welcome to Small Biz Central, the show where we exchange information and ideas about small business. I'm Tim Brunero. On this episode of Small Biz Central, we are going to be talking about young people in business. And of course, we're joined by our panel of experts. Don Wright with the University of Western Sydney. Welcome, Don.
G'day, Tim.
Dorry, Kordahi, the poster boy for this year's BRW Young Rich List, co-founder of merchandising and marketing company DKM Blue, and author of a new book, Power to Act. Hello and welcome, Dorry.
How are you, Tim?
And of course, let's not forget Matt Bowen, Director of Chasing Rainbows Australia. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, let's meet our first young person in business.
Hi, my name is Sasha. I'm 20 years old. I was originally born in the Republic of Georgia and now I live in Australia after traveling the world a bit. I'm an entrepreneur and I started the brand name Sasha's, with which I want to make the world a better place. My idea for the Sasha's brand name and in making the world a better place came inherently from, I guess, a younger age. I always looked at the world and I always saw that, I thought that it was only fair that everybody lived in equality and that everybody was empowered and educated to be able to live the kind of life that they had the potential to live. And I remember there was an economics lesson where we watched a video which sort of outlined the injustices of the world, where people were living and working in these very poor conditions. And by that time, my dream started solidifying that I really wanted to live in a world where there was no poverty and people had the resources and the tools so that they too would be able to follow their dreams. And by that time, I realized that business and economics were fundamental foundations of the world. And with business, we could fundamentally give back to the world. Because if it wasn't for the community, the society, and the people and the environment, businesses wouldn't be where they are today. And so I decided, what better way than for a business to give back to the world? And that's how I came up with the idea of the Sasha's brand name, which I will grow into an international company. And no matter what we will sell under the brand name, 50% of the profits will go into the foundation. So 2 years ago, on the 10th of June 2008, I started writing my book, Teens Big Dreams, and after 2 years of edits, I designed the book this year and published it in August. Lots of people that are reading it around the world are already being inspired by it. And what's incredible for me is, while I intended for it to originally be read, like for teenagers, that's who I wrote it for, the book has been read from children as young as 10 through to teenagers and parents and adults and grandparents. The way that the Sasha's 50-50 business model works is pretty simple. If the businesses are here because of the community, society, the people and the environment, it became the business's responsibility to also give back to the world. So what I decided to do was come up with the Sasha's 50-50 business model, which meant that no matter what product or service that you would buy under the Sasha's brand name, 50% of the profits would go straight into the foundation. And in the foundation, 100% of the funds would go to provide the resources and the tools for other people in the world to become self-sustainable. And so what I really wanted to do was have a foundation where all the administration costs would be covered by the company. So every person knows that when they're buying a product from the Sasha's brand name, they are already making a true difference. The other 50% that doesn't go into the foundation goes back into growing the Sasha's brand name, because that is the only way that we will be able to grow sustainably. And the way I envision the brand to work is that the more exponentially the brand will grow, the more exponentially the amount of profits would go into the foundation to help other people. The kind of marketing that I use with Sasha's it's not so much about pushing onto consumers or pushing onto people. Instead, what I want to do is I want to create a sense of excitement among people and a sense that they would want to become part of the brand name. And so something that I do is I try not to give a lot of news out, and instead what I try to do is I try to create this excitement about something that might be coming. At the moment, I'm currently working full-time on my book, Teens Big Dreams. I'm promoting that and also working full-time in growing the Sasha's brand name. I have been working since the age of 15 and for nearly every single weekend since then. So I've used all my savings and I've used all the money I had in order to bring the Sasha's brand name and the book Teens Big Dreams to life.
Wow, Sasha really is a very, very fast talker. Yeah. Don, he's got his book and he's got his brand. What are your first impressions?
Yeah, look, it's great. I think it's really commendable. You know, as you say, he's got such energy and enthusiasm, and I think it's fantastic. I'd love to know a little bit more about his business, and I think it's great that he's growing this brand and he's got this commitment to charity. But yeah, I suppose I'd like a little bit more meat on the bones to understand exactly how he's going to make that brand work in terms of selling products or services in the future.
Now, Matt, you actually work with young people. Of course, you're in the community with your foundation, helping young volunteers work with other young people. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I'm the director of Chasing Rainbows Australia. So unlike Sasha, this is a 100% not-for-profit organisation, and the objective is to basically put young people from university education into small communities to volunteer, basically it's volunteering programs with disadvantaged children. So we're working closely with the Sudanese community around the Greater Western Sydney region, because we found that a lot of the families are migrating to Australia and the kids are going to school but they're not quite up to the educational standards of their classmates. So we're bringing in some predominantly university educated students to come along, build those kids up to standard of their classmates, and yeah, we're finding some great results so far.
Dorry, so much of Sasha's model is giving back.
Yeah.
And I know that in your business there was a time where you took someone under your wing.
Yep.
I think their name might be Cosima DeVito. I think we all know who that is. But to you that was sort of some giving back, because you didn't have a lot of experience in the music industry. I think in your book you say, I had, you know, all the experience I had I could have put on a postage stamp, everything I knew. And even though that might not have, that was kind of a revenue neutral thing, that was something you wanted to do for her?
No, definitely. I think it's important to give back to the community, whether it's to an individual or to a charity or to a foundation. So I think what Sasha's done is great, and I commend him on that as well. You know, at 20, you know, I didn't think I even had the headspace to even think of that. I was running around clubs and enjoying my teen years. So I give him a lot of credit for you know, for starting. So I think Sasha's on the right track, and I think he's got a long way to go. But I think he's got the right idea and direction, and yeah, you know, what I've done with Cosma, it's given me, I'm giving back to her in relation to trying to help her out with her career, and it's all about help and put back, I guess, what you get out.
And of course it has dividends for you, because you get to network and meet a whole lot of people and learn, I suppose. Yeah. But you're very young person focused as well.
Yeah.
You hire a lot of young staff, and you sort of have a bit of a catch cry, again, in your book, that you'd rather build experience than buy it. Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, you know, any upstart business, when I started my business 8 years ago, so I think the most important aspect of any business when you start is manage your cash flow and manage your overheads. And for me, you know, I measure a business on what you make, not what you turn over. And the most important thing that I really focused on was, you know, as Sasha was saying with his business, I wanted to focus on my brand and focus on my business and get the model right. And yes, you can hire senior staff and you can pay them big dollars, but that costs money. And if your cash flow's not there at the start, then it can put a strain. So I had the philosophy, I prefer to hire young staff and teach them my philosophies, my understanding of the business, and let them project what I wanted, how I wanted them to project my business. So it does take more time and more work, but the rewards are there at the end.
And it's funny, I think you mentioned in the book that you use a combination of sort of monetary rewards, positive reinforcement, and even the odd day off to encourage staff who have performed. Okay, now we haven't had the last of Sasha. He's got a question for you guys.
My question to the panel is, what do you think of the business model, and what do you think I can do in order to grow that business model into the future?
Well, Sasha's one of many Australian entrepreneurs. We've got Dorry here, Dick Smith, Colette Dinnigan, John Simons. I mean, what is it about Aussies that we seem to sort of push these entrepreneurial boundaries?
I think Aussies are resourceful people. You know, they get an opportunity and they seize it and they run with it, which I think is a really good thing. And it's great to see young people in business doing that. And I think that's what they need to do. That's that is the ingredient to take you forward, is that energy and enthusiasm and the grabbing an opportunity when it comes.
It's funny, we want to give Sasha as much advice as we can. I know, Dorry, you talk about, again, in your book, about how important it is to compete for awards, and that it can pay dividends on a whole range of levels.
Yeah, it's definitely like, you know, awards, you know, it sells itself. You know, if you can become a finalist in an award or you can win an award, it's free marketing. People are selling your business for you. So, you know, with my business, I've focused on entering as many awards as we could, and, you know, we haven't won any, but we've been in the top 5 and top 3 and been finalists, you know, in numerous areas and categories. So it sells your business for you, and I think it puts a little bit more trust in the consumer, knowing that, you know, you've been recognised by an industry body or an industry magazine as being one of the best out there, and that's important.
Matt, you work with Gen Y people. In fact, I think you actually are Gen Y. Everyone says they're selfish, they want it all now, they've got Peter Pan syndrome, they don't want to grow up. What do you say to that?
Look, I mean, I have to disagree, Tim, because I am Gen Y, but people would be after me if I said otherwise. Look, sure, we are fickle, and it's all about our Facebook friends and how many followers we've got on Twitter, but there is the exception.
So nice to hear you admit it.
There's the exception like Sasha, you know, he's got energy, he's got enthusiasm, and he's got a great business model, you know. I don't think that growing your business and having a foundation on the side is mutually exclusive. You know, that's a great idea. If they both grow together, then not only is the community getting more, Sasha's getting more in the back pocket too, which is going to boost his energy and enthusiasm about growing the business. My advice to Sasha would be probably just a little bit more transparency in the foundation, because consumers will flock to a good idea. And at the moment, Sasha doesn't really stand for anything in terms of the foundation. He says he wants to give all the money back, but, you know, we need to know where it's going.
And I'm sure we'll see that, you know, Sasha will, he's got that brand, and as he says, he's ready to go with a whole lot of these product ideas, and perhaps like you, Dorry, I mean, you know, you were so full of enthusiasm when you went on your famous trip to Europe, and you were sort of thinking, I want to make some money, I want to succeed and mix with some of the people you were mixing with, but you hadn't had your idea, and I think you put your flight off back home from England six times until you got those famous 3 bits of paper that had the bones of your business plan, which was to become, you know, DK in Blue.
Yes, definitely. You know, I think the most important thing is getting the right foundation in place, and I think Sasha's got the right foundation, the mechanics are there, but I think he should focus a little bit more on promoting the foundation and what the foundation stands for, and I think that's, once he gets that right, I don't think he should focus a lot on promoting how the mechanics works. I think once people say it's money's going towards the charity, I think people will tend to trust that.
I agree with that. I think we understand the fact that he's giving money to charity, and that's great. But I think as he moves forward and he wants to access finance from financiers and sell these products that he's going to promote through the Sasha's brand, there's going to have to be a little bit more meat on the bones of the business structure. People are going to need to understand how this actually works. And it's great that he's going to create excitement around the brand. I think that'll work. But I would like to understand a little bit more about his business model and how he's going to actually generate revenue.
Clearly he's ready to make mistakes, Dorry. I mean, you must have made $1 million since you started. Tell us about some of those, the growing pains.
What mistakes? No, look, you know, I'm a firm believer. For me, before I even started my business, I was always visualising all the negatives in the business. So when people say to me, what mistakes have you made? I would say I haven't made any massive mistakes. It's always been calculated mistakes.
They're experiences.
They're experiences. And it's important. I always like to learn of other people's mistakes than my own. And before I even started my company, I spent 6 months on my European trip and just visualising all the negatives that can go wrong in a business. And once I subconsciously worked that out in my head, when I came back and I had those hurdles, I had subconsciously had gone through those. So you're going to always make mistakes, but make it calculated where it's not going to cost your business or your house or anything. Don't put it on the line.
Well, I don't want to cut Dorry off. He's going to be back with lots more tips after the break.